Welcome back everyone to the last battle of week 7 in the VPL. Today we've got Digiko versus Nagi. On Digiko's side, the team is built around a very resilient defensive core with a few key wall breakers sprinkled in. Showdown can set spikes and acts as a general purpose pivot into special attackers and electric type moves from Raging Bolt. If it gets to stack hazards early, every future switch in from Nagi hurts. Amoonguss is the classic regenerator style wall, rocky helmet chip, foul play to punish physical attackers, status to wear things down, regenerator. We've got the option of leech seed, and it's the first line of defense into Ogerpon, Brute Bonnet and Sneasler. Cresselia gives massive special bulk and a safety net into scary nukes like Raging Bolt. Even if it's not offensive, it buys crucial turns. And once Raging Bolt used Draco Meteor once, it can safely recover against it. Akaludon is the big Dragon Steel tank and a special attacker. It can come in on a lot of natural hits and fire off heavy hitting Draco Meteors to fort trades or outright claim a KO. Iron Hands is the main physical wall breaker from what I see, and also an emergency button for Digiko. It has huge bulk, it has Drain Punch for sustain, probably Ice Punch for Glasgow coverage, and it holds the ear Papa Berry in this match to survive just a bit longer. Raikou rounds it out as a flexible attacker and late game cleaner. Since it's very fast, it can take advantage of chipped targets, and with coverage moves like Scald, it is even able to burn Nagi's physical attackers. Altogether, Digiko's game plan leans toward getting up spikes, pivoting between her bulky team members, and create spots where her offensive Pokemon like Iron Hands, Akaludon or Raikou can safely secure a KO. On the other side, Nagi brings a very proactive, pressure-heavy team that still has plenty of defensive backbones. We have Gliscor, which is the classic Poison Heal set. It can set Stealth Rocks, it doesn't really care about passive damage, it can spam Earthquake, Protect, it can even Sword Stance, and while doing that it stays annoyingly healthy. Ogerpon is a very fast wall breaker that has strong stab moves like Power Whip, Ivy Cudgel, and great coverage to punish switch-ins, especially Gastrodon. Brute Bonnet is a Pokemon we don't see often on Nagi's team. It acts as a slow, offensive Pokemon and status spreader. Besides ignoring Spore, Stomping Tantrum and Sucker Punch, it threatens both bulky and offensive Pokemon if they underestimate it, because it's quite strong. Raging Bolt, as always, is the terrifying special nuke Nagi has. With Choice Specs, Draco Meteor, plus strong electric pressure means very few things want to switch in, and even fewer things can comfortably switch in more than once. Sneasler is her mid to late game cleaner. She has tons of opportunities to set up her Unburden ability. She can use Fake Out with a normal gem, she can use Close Combat with a White Herb, and after that she is able to make use of Acrobatics, which looks good against Amoonguss in Digiko's team. The last Pokemon is Low Kicks. Low Kicks brings immediate damage, especially with Tera Buck. Its first impression hits like a truck. Once the field is chipped by hazards and trades, a correctly timed first impression can just end the game on one spot, and after that it's safe to click U-turn into another defensive Pokemon and pivot back into Low Kicks to click first impression again. Nagi's team wants to keep the pace high. She can force progress with Raging Bolt, then let Sneasler and Low Kicks clean once Digiko's defensive core has been worn down and Spike's rocks have done their job. And that's where this matchup becomes really intense. If Digiko can keep Gastrodon and Amoonguss healthy, manage hazards and position Iron Hands into good trades, the bulk on her team can absolutely absorb the pressure and push back. However, if Nagi ever strings together a strong sequence with Gliscor plus a wall breaker, or finds just one overextended turn from Digiko, the combination of Sneasler and Low Kicks priority can very quickly snowball the endgame. The big question is, can Digiko's bulky core and hazard game hold long enough for Iron Hands and Raikou to stabilize? or will Nagi's offense crack the defenses and open the door for a low kicks cleanup? Let's find out. Digiko leads off with her Gastrodon and Nagi leads off with her Gliscor, so Digiko probably predicted the Raging Bolt opening, which would have been very strong if any other Pokemon than Gastrodon would have been in Digiko's lead, so good call on her part. Nagi immediately switches out into Ogerpon, and with that she forces Gastrodon out into Amoonguss. Power Whip does 12%, not very much to Amoonguss. Ogerpon does way more to itself due to the Rocky Helmet. We see the knocking off the Rocky Helmet, so that's very good on Digiko's part. Foul Play does 40%. This is a very strong match so far. Brute Bonnet comes out, gets Foul Play, resists it, and it doesn't do much damage. However, Digiko can Toxic here. Spore obviously doesn't affect Amoonguss since it's a grass type. Toxic, however, affects Brute Bonnet, and a Toxic Brute Bonnet looks very good for Digiko. She switches out into Iron Hands, which catches the Stomping Tantrum. That's not very good. 50% is way too much damage to get on Iron Hands this early. Digiko switches back into Amoonguss, which is almost at full health now since it got the Regenerator boost. We see Stomping Tantrum doing 20%, so it would have been best for Digiko to stay in Amoonguss. She uses Foul Play again. I think this is her only way to damage Brute Bonnet. Does she have Regenerate? Does she have Synthesis? She has Protect as her last move. That gives Gliscor the safe Toxic from Toxic Orb. Digiko switches into Gastrodon, and Nagi scouts what Digiko wants to do with Protect. It's a very strong move from Nagi. She switches into Lokix because Lokix is probably the Pokemon that catches Ice Beam the best. 35% is very much. We see Lokix getting the freeze. That's not good for Nagi. Lokix immediately thaws. Goes for a U-turn with just 60 damage. That's so much damage, and there wasn't even with Terrestrialization. Ice Beam does 35% to the Raging Bolt as well, and Digiko wants to switch out. She switches into Cresselia to catch the Draco Meteor. However, that's pretty much a dead Cresselia because there's not much that Cresselia can switch into now. She sacrifices Cresselia to another Draco Meteor, and I'm not sure if that was the best move she could have done. Caludon comes out, obviously forces out Raging Bolt. Draco Meteor hits even a crit and kills Ogerpon, so they're each down one Pokemon now. Lokix comes out, and with Fighting type move it pressures out a Caludon. Digiko goes into Gastrodon and sacrifices Gastrodon as well. And that's not very good for her. She goes out into Raikou, which I'm not sure what Raikou's supposed to do. I mean, it's faster, but there's still the option of Sucker Punch for Lokix. Scald doesn't kill Brute Bonnet, which is not very good because now Nagi can Sucker Punch and do huge amounts of damage to Raikou. Raikou's at 34% now and has to switch into Rocks if Digiko switches out again, which she should do with Sneasel on the field. She switches into Amoonguss. Yeah, we see Fake Out. We see Fake Out normal gems, so Acrobatics does huge amounts of damage. And she has to switch into... She switches into a Caludon? Okay, she switches into a Caludon instead of Iron Hands. I think Iron Hands can easily live a non-step Acrobatics from Sneasler. Close combat is enough to kill the Arcaludon. And now there's no other choice for Digiko other than switching into Iron Hands. We see Acrobatics doing 17%. And the Drain Punch does 43, healing. Iron Hands back up. Even Close Combat isn't enough to kill the Iron Hands. The Papa Berry coming in clutch. Drain Punch is enough to kill Sneasler and heal Iron Hands back up to over 50%. Does it have the coverage for Gliscor? It has the Ice Punch, does 67%, which is huge. However, it doesn't live another Earthquake. And since Digiko doesn't have her Levitate switch in, that's a dead Iron Hands. Raiku's faster than Gliscor and can Scald here to kill Gliscor, which it does. But now Lokix can come in and just First Impression. Do we see First Impression? Yeah, First Impression kills Raikou. And with that, Nagi wins this match. What a tense match. From the very start, Digiko played to her strengths. Gastrodon got at least one layer of spikes up immediately. Amoonguss soaked hits and spread chip with Rocky Helmet and Foul Play. However, Rocky Helmet got knocked off early, which was a bit unfortunate. Cresselia absorbed the massive Draco Meteors to at least buy some momentum. However, I don't think Cresselia was the Pokemon to sacrifice here. Her idea was clear: to wear Nagi's team down slowly and force progress through positioning. But Nagi never let the pace slow down. Raging Bolt hit hard enough to force sacrifices. Ogerpon and Brute Bonnet both pushed damage through, even on bad matchups, and most importantly, Sneasler and Lokix were perfectly preserved until the end game. That was the key difference here. Once Rocks had chipped Digiko's team just enough, Sneasler took over completely. Acrobatics and Close Combat picked apart Amoonguss, Arcaludon and almost Iron Hands. But once Iron Hands fell, Lokix was free to deliver the final blow with Tera Bug First Impression. Digiko had a good mid-game positioning. Nagi's decision to hold Lokix until the absolute end and not waste First Impression earlier was game-winning here. With everything weakened, First Impression plus Hazard Chip sealed the deal. In short, Digiko had the structure, but Nagi had the execution. And when the cleanup duo of Sneasler and Lokix gets unleashed into a chipped field, it doesn't matter how bulky the core is, the game picks up pace and ends fast. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was the last match of the first round, and with the next video we'll go into the weekly reviews of the second round. I hope you're looking forward to that, and I see you then.